All right, so here we go. We are going to do the first page of the practice test. I need mouths shut so we can get this done and do problem number 9 for you. So, whatever we don't get to, if you still have questions, please, please, please watch today's video. Part 1 will be the back side and part 2 will be the front side, which we are doing right now. All right, so number 1, here's an equation. Here we go. Brayden, get your head out. How are we going to solve this equation? Multiply everything by 12, and please use parentheses. Now, I'm going to tell you, because I am in the middle of grading the academic tests, they took their test yesterday, a bunch of them forgot to multiply this side by 12. You've got to multiply the whole shebang. You did that so that you could cancel, right, Olivia?
Yeah.
Leaving me with 3x plus 9 minus 8x equal to negative 36. Any question about that? So negative 5x plus 9 equals negative 36. Let's subtract 9 from both sides. So negative 5x equals negative 45, and x equals 9. Somebody say wait over there.
You want to, I got the 3x plus 9 again.
4 goes into 12 3 times.
Okay.
3 times x, 3 times 3. That becomes a coefficient on the parentheses, so you have to distribute it. Number 2, you may do this problem any way you want, but when I do it, I will do it the same way every time. I don't want a coefficient there, just like completing a square. I don't want that. So I'm going to divide everything by 2, and just like over here, I'm doing it all the way across. So I'm left with x minus 3 halves is greater than 2. Now remember, we draw a number line. And we put some starting point right here in the middle. Anybody remember what that starting point is? Positive 3 halves. Very good. It's the opposite of this number. That's where I start. And then I'm going to count forward and put a dot, and count backwards and put a dot. How much am I going to count forwards and backwards? 2. So I can do that in fractions, or I can do that in decimals. If you want to think of 3 halves as 1 1/2, then it might be easier to do it in decimals. If I go forward 2, I would be at 3 1/2. And if I go backward 2, I would be at negative 1/2. Now these are the answers. You just need to decide if you're going to shade out of them, outside of them, or in between them. This is your key. What does greater than mean? Out.
The alligator eats it.
So this
I remember that.
and this are your answers. Less than negative 0.5 or greater than 3.5. Kids, everything here is a GTQ, guaranteed test question. This is what you have to do on your test. Okay? Lucy.
Can you leave it as negative half?
Absolutely.
7/2.
You absolutely can. So if you did it in terms of fractions, and it makes no difference, kids, it's whatever you are most comfortable with. You'll have a calculator, so if you want to do it in decimals or fractions, it doesn't matter. Either one of those is fine. Now what about C? How do I start it? It is not an absolute value. Is that a minus or a plus? Minus? How do I solve this equation? Don't make it hard. That's right. It's a quadratic. So we're just going to use our quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac
All over 2A.
all over 2a. Right? Mackenzie, you with me? What happens to the double negative here?
Addition.
It becomes an addition, so I'll get my calculator. Oops.
No.
I got 73 under my radical. Did anybody else?
What?
That does not break down, so guess what? We're done.
What? How do you think done in that?
Number 2, question number 2a. What do I do with this one? Who remembers 2a?
No. I just like to do it all the time.
Don't I distribute the negative?
Yeah.
So that gives me 1 plus 3i, and that one's done. What about 2b? What do I do with that? Foil it. So first, outside, inside, last. Now this is where you've got to know something. What is I squared?
-1.
-1. That needs to be starred. I squared is -1. So every time you see an I squared, you're going to think of it as -1. So what do we really have here? Plus 2. Which combines with the 18 and gives you a 20. These two combine and give you a minus 9i. Part 3, properties. What's A? Additive inverse. Additive inverse. What's B? Associative of multiplication. Remember, associative regroups, right?
So did you say A was
Additive inverse. Additive inverse. If I said identity, I was wrong. I meant to say inverse. Additive inverse. B is associative of multiplication. What's C? Distributive. Very, very good. Okay, we're rolling through this. Number 4a. Can you use the quadratic formula on this problem? Stop. Stop, stop, stop. What's quadratic mean? X squared. Can you use the quadratic formula on this problem? No. No, you can't complete the square. The only thing you can do with this problem is factor it. Look at all those terms. What's our technique if we're going to factor it? Anybody, Maya, you remember?
Take 2 x's out first.
You group it, and so you look at the first 2 terms and you pull out x squared. And what's left? Now we're only looking at these 2 terms, so what's left?
X plus 4.
X plus 4, very good. Now we look at the last 2. What can we take out of them?
-4.
-4, and what's that leave me with? X plus 4. You took out a negative, so it's x plus 4. Now, we should be jumping for joy because these 2 match. We write down the match. Notice I didn't square it. I just wrote it down. Just write down the match. What's left? When I write down the match, I have left x squared minus 4. which factors down more into x plus 2, x minus 2? I checked with your teachers. You did a lot of this last year. This is not new to you. So what does that mean my answers are? X equals negative 4, negative 2, and 2. So when you have to factor something, GTQ, guaranteed test question, when you have to factor something that has all those terms, we take it in chunks. We call it factoring by grouping. You'll get a chance tonight to practice another one. All right, how about 4B? What's our strategy with 4B? Square both sides.
No, 1, 3, I think.
Gonna square both sides? PJ, get your head up.
I was sleeping.
All the way up. I don't care. It's disrespectful. So I'm going to square both sides. So I'll have 3x minus 8 equals 36.
Yeah.
So 3x equals 44 and x equals 44 thirds. Do not freak out. That's fine. Now I need to check it though. Make sure it's fine. Don't freak out. What happens, I'm putting this in the original, what happens when I multiply 3 times 44 over 3? The 3's cancel? Becomes 44, and 44 minus 8 is 36, and the square root of 36 is 6. Checked. Do not use the quadratic formula. Right? Because this is not an equal to. This is a greater than or equal to. What's our strategy when they're a greater than or equal to? Factor. Do you see the difference between that one and number 1C? 1C is an equals. So we could use the quadratic formula. This is not an equals, so we are going to factor. And how does that factor? Actually it'd be minus 6 plus 2, I think, to get the negative 4. Who remembers the next step? Draw your number line. And I put 2 dots on my number line, and they're going to be closed dots. And what are they going to be? 6 and negative 2. Uh, 4C. Last one on the page, actually. Last one on the page. Now, what do I do next? Delaney, you remember? Once I get my dots on my number line, I know I'm going to shade somewhere. I need to figure out where to shade. And remember, it alternates. So how do I tell where to shade? Out. Well, it could be out. I don't know. I have to figure that out. I mean, I don't want to just guess. My grade depends on this. Okay, listen carefully. Bryce is going to tell us. Bryce?
You pick a number either on the outside or the inside.
Pick a number anywhere, anything except these two, right? You can't pick these two. So Bryce, what would you suggest?
Let's start with 8.
8. So Bryce is picking a number out here. Now he's going to plug that in, and it's either going to work or not. And here's what I mean by work. When I plug 8 in, what is this parentheses? 2. What is this parentheses? When I multiply 2 times 10, I get 20. is 20 bigger than 0?
Yes.
That means he picked a good number. So I'm going to shade where that number is. 8 was out here. I'm going to shade that. Now, what does that tell me about this section?
Not a good section.
It's not a good section, but this section is. So x is less than or equal to -2 or greater than or equal to 6. So that's page 1. Now, I want to do number 9 with you. I will give you this general formula. All right, that's given. You don't have to memorize that. But now what you have to be able to do is read the question and plug in this value and this value. So read the question. What are we going to put in for these two values? You're not putting anything else in at this point. You're building your equation. So what are you going to put in there for V sub naught? 20. Boys and girls, just read it. The initial velocity is 20. So we're going to put 20. What's the initial height? 30. This is question A. That's all you had to do. That's A. That's the equation for the problem. That's it. Now you're going to use that equation to do the rest of the problem. Okay? Notice that in the equation now, there are two variables. There's the height and there's the seconds. Every problem that you do now in number 9, they're either going to give you this, and you're going to find that, or they're going to give you this, and you're going to find this. So read question B. When does the ball hit the ground? Do you know anything about time or anything about distance if the ball is on the ground? The distance is 0. So you're going to put a 0 here. The height is 0. Kids, the ball is on the ground. Its height is 0. And you're going to find out what t values, what times make that happen. You're going to solve this equation. How do you think you're going to solve that equation? The quadratic formula. So here we go. This is an option for you. I look at these numbers when I wrote them down. You see how they're all even numbers?
Yeah.
If you want to, this is completely optional, please don't be confused. But if you want to, you can divide everything in here by, I would divide by -2. Because I don't like negatives here in the front. It doesn't matter, that's a personal problem I have. You don't have to have that problem. I'm going to divide, so I'm going to actually solve the equation that. Now, what happens if you don't divide? Will you get the same answer as me? Yeah. So don't be confused. T equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Again, you've got the double negative, so please be careful. I got the square root of 580, is that right? Yeah. This is going to turn into a plus. 4 times 8 times 15, and then plus 100. Now, this problem's a little bit different. it's a word problem. The question is, when does the ball hit the ground? Seriously, if you were playing a game and your coach said, how long does it take the ball to hit the ground? Are you gonna give an answer like 10 plus the square root of 580 over 16? No, you're gonna say 2.4 seconds, right? Or something like that. So let's get decimals for this one. We don't normally get decimals, but this is a word problem. It's a special circumstance. So 10 plus the square root of 580 equals, make sure you hit enter, and then divide it by 16, 2.13 seconds is one answer. 100 minus the square root of 580 equals, make sure you hit enter at that point, oh not 100, 10. 10 minus the square root of 580, sorry about that, divided by 16, negative 0.88 seconds. Yeah.
I got positive 0.88 as my answer. Like I did that first. I didn't simplify at the beginning, but I got all the way.
Okay, I'll look at it. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I'll look at yours and see if there's a mistake in it. My guess is, did you divide by negative 32?
No.
That's your problem then. Because if you didn't simplify this, your A is negative 16, so your denominator is negative 32. Shh, wait. Something here is a little fishy. Philip. Well, there's something fishy here. This guy, we're going to throw him out. Why? It's extraneous. Why?
Negative.
Because it's negative, and we can't have negative time. Last question. How high is the ball after 1.5 seconds? Go back to your equation right here. How high is the ball after 1.5 seconds? Kids, what are you going to do with the 1.5? It either goes here or it goes here. It goes here because it is a second. So you will say, this is C, negative 16 times 1.5 squared plus 20 times 1.5 plus 30. When you put this into your calculator, what is getting squared? Just the 1.5. So you'll do 1.5 squared times negative 16 plus 20 times 1.5 plus 30. That's 24 feet. I want to emphasize again that on your projectile motion problem, the first step will be to write the equation you're going to use. Then you're going to be asked some questions. And the questions, to answer the questions, you will either put a number in for height or you will put a number in for t. You just have to read the problem to see which one it is. If I give you a height, then you'll put it here. If I give you a time, then you'll do what we did here, put it in there. My guess is there'll be one of each, just like here. Okay? Now, was there anything else? We don't have time to do everything else, but 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Any question about those? Anything we need to talk about? Philip?
On the test, do we have to bring quadratic formula?
Not if you're going to type it in your calculator. And on the projectile motion problem, we're going to put it in our calculator. Okay?